Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Eshan Rao. I'm a PhD student from IIT Tirupati, and this is the fourth live session for NPTEL course Programming in Java. So these sessions are being recorded and it happens every Tuesday. And for the ones who had joined earlier, might have seen in YouTube videos that I have facing some issues while recording. That even though I'm recording right now, it's not giving proper output, for which I have to re-record certain part of the session. So I hope this time I have fixed the issue, which I will get to know by the end of the session because I'm recording a 2-hour session like that. So let's start the session. Uh, with respect to it, so till now what we have seen in basics of Java, in J shell in IntelliJ, plus we introduce the concept of class objects and encapsulation. In this session, we will look mostly and only towards the inheritance part, and some aspect of polymorphism will come in between. Okay, so with that being said, let me start sharing my screen and let's discuss what we'll discuss today. I just shared my screen. I hope it is coming. Okay, now it's up. Let me go to the. So this is a fourth session, and we will just do a small recap about static and versus instance variable, because last time we stopped at the references, what is called references, what is called instances, what is called as objects, like that. So we'll just go to a small recap in 5-10 minutes. What is the static and instance variables and methods? Followed by we will go jump towards inheritance. So static keyword is usually known by using the keyword called static, and they have so there's only one static variable of that name. So when we're creating an instance of an object at that point of time, there will be not a copies of static variables will be there. It is considered like only one variable with a static thing will be available. Okay, you can define multiple variable with static as access modifier, but they will have only one copy. So if you changed made into that static variable, all the instance of that classes will see the effect of that change. Okay, so for example, if we have a class dog and uh, you have used you have created a static variable called genus, and then if you try to print data, and that print data you again create a new object called dog and try to print it. Okay, there are two ways to print the same thing, either using d.genus or genus within, because it's same class, or dog.genus, right? But it's usually a practice to use the class name, not the reference variable, to access a static variable. Okay, when you use a class name dot with the variable name, it signifies that that variable is a static. Okay, and so, and also if you are have a declare a variable static, you can directly access in another class without creating it the object or the instances of that, right? So for example, in this main class, if you want to print the variable the value of genus which is present in another class called dog, here we can justly print out dog.genus where we presenting the class name dot genus. So this is a functionality of static variable. Don't have to create a new instance of the class or the new object of that class. Okay, so why it is useful? It's not used often actually, but if you're seeing the example, this just for showing the different variable types, but actually it's not used often. It's usually used for storing counters, generating unique IDs, constant values, uh, or controlling accessing the shared resources. So we will see one example of that soon while we're coding for inheritance as well, the use of static variable. Okay, to give a little bit more overview of static variables. Uh, so let's look at this code where we have a class called doc and we have a private static name of print of a variable called name. Okay, where we are assigning with the constructor. This is a public parameterized constructor where we are assigning the name passed on to the doc dot name. Okay, So again you see that it's not this dot name, not name, it is like dog dot name. Dog dot name signifies it's a static variable. Okay, so if you can just print it like name, because it's a class variable you can access it, but it is recommended dog dot name would have made code less confusing for the since it's kind of convention well a Java developer use it, so that's why it's preferable to use the class name dot the static variable name. Similarly, in the if you have another class where you have a main function, in that if you try to create a dog object with name Rex and Fluffy and try to print it, that Rex not print name and Fluffy dot print name, it will print Fluffy in both the cases. The reason is simple being that there's only one copy of a static variable called name. Okay, so since the Fluffy has changed the value of the static variable because of this public dog dot name, that's why it will print Fluffy in both the cases. Okay, now something called as instance variable. These are the general variables that we use which also called as fields and member variables. So whatever the variables we have used as of now in our session, or if you have seen the code, they are mostly our instance variable. Okay, and each instance variable belong to a specific instance of a class. That means each object of a class will have its own copy of that instance variable. Okay, uh, each instance because each since they have each copy of that, so they can store different kind of values. Okay, so similarly as like the earlier code, if we remove the starting aspect from here, private static string name was there earlier, but if we remove the static part, if we just try to print it, it will print if we try to initialize with Rex and Fluffy, two different objects, so it will print the values which are just passed to them, Rex in this case and Fluffy in that other case. Okay, so this one aspect difference between instance and static variable, you will have a copy of each variable or each field made in the class in the object, but for static variable you have only one single copy throughout all the objects. Similarly, static methods, so they are much more stricter in that static methods are using static modifier, and you can't access instance method or or I should say instance, not instant, it's instance variable. That means I can't since instance variable are the one we have can have each copy, it's not recommended or it's not allowed to use those variable in the static methods. Okay, so that means if that is not the case, you can also not use this, because this operator is used to specify the current object of the class, which current instance of the class has been used. Okay, so inside the static one we can't use this keyword. Also, whenever see a method that doesn't use an instance variable, that means you should probably declare that a static method. Okay, static method will allow to know Java virtual machine to know that how it is what kind of method it has. So based on it will acquire the kind of memory. Okay, so for example here static method, so if I have a static print sum, okay, with summing addition, and then we have in class main I have to calculate a print sum 510. Okay, so I'm just see I'm not creating an object directly here, I can also access it directly using the class name. So calculator.printsum, any static variable or method can be accessed directly through the class name as well. Okay, and print hello is the and if you have a static method within the class itself, so you can directly access it without having to call something, creating an object for that. Okay, so that's a differentiator for static methods. Instance method, these are the methods where you can use instance variable. Okay, and almost all the variables that all the methods that we have seen as of now are instance methods. Okay, you can access static method, you can call them a static variable also, but vice versa is not possible in this case. Okay, so if you can see here for the class dog we have a function called bark. For to access this bark I have to create a variable called rex, and I have to call that using that rex object I have to call the bark function. Okay, so in short, if you how to define a method as static, if you are not using any instance variable or methods, it should be a static method, otherwise it should be instance method. Okay, so we'll look into that much more clearly over the period of time. So I hope this as a overview of summary of instance and static must be clear. Okay, so static are only one copy, it should be used very carefully. Instance variable methods are the generally one you use all the time. Okay, so let me see if you have any question with respect to this, otherwise I will go to the next point. Can we access non-static data member in static method? No. So that is what one of the condition of static methods. Uh, so if I go this, whenever you set static methods can't access instant method or instance variable directly. It can't access that. It will give you an error. Reason means static method has only one copy throughout the system. Okay, just like static variable. So uh, so any change in the instance variable will not be taken care of. That's why it's mostly static methods are used for printing certain dates, certain kind of data, or if you're using a static variable into that. But the vice versa is possible. That is, you can use static method, call static method, or you can use static variable in the instance class, instance method for sure. I hope this answer is clear. Okay. So let me come down to the second aspect to it. Uh, Basically, a different use of terminology which is being used in Java. I just want to have an overview of that for you people. Okay. Uh, that this an object of a class can also be called as plain old Java object. Okay, the plain old Java object. Uh, that means if a class has only and only instance field, it's rarely have any method. Even it has method, very apart from getter and setter, it will be very few. Okay, now why it is used? It because it this object also act like as a database kind of thing, database framework. That means I can read the data, I can write the data into that, right? Database works like that only, right? You can store the data, you can retrieve the data from that. So similarly, an object or can also be also treated like that if we define our classes which house the data and pass the data. That's it. No more much of the information you're dealing with. So this is called as POJO as acronym. So it also called as Bean or Java Bean. Okay. So you don't have to remember it. It's just some extra information with respect to it, how people use it. Okay. So it also called as entity because it have mirror the database entities like that. It also called as data transfer object. Okay, so it's just a way for dealing with the kind of data you are having. You can just store it. Okay, so if you have seen in the last time, I have created directly the getter and setter function. I have generated the constructor automatically because writing it will take some time, and it's a there's a common way. It will take care of all the syntax and all those things. It is happened because of the this kind of the objects that we are creating. Yes, you have any questions? Okay, so this code generation, because we have a certain format and we deal with, since right now we are dealing with very few number of variables and methods, it's very easy for to create the getter and setter function automatically by the IDEs. Okay, so this is one example. If you just define a student variable, student class with this variable, that will be considered as an entity, considered as a table or in the database, but in class it will consider as a entity as well. Okay, so let me show you few of the things with respect to it, so such that we can get little bit understanding of what I'm telling, but as a POJO or the plain old Java object. Okay, to do that, let me, I think you can see my IntelliJ IDE screen. Here I'm just creating a class and I'll create student. Now I have four entities, that is ID, name, date of birth, and class list. So for simplicity right now, I just have it as a private string right now. Later we can see uh, something else. We can define some other data type for it. So string ID, private string name, private string date of birth, and private string class list. Okay, now I have just, if I just have this variables and I don't assign any other methods as of now, so only classes which can generate directly automatically is, one is automatically generated is through IDE, generated methods through IDE are getters, setters, and constructors. There's another one which we'll talk on in just few minutes. So let me create one. So first let me create a constructor here. So I can just use the generate. So one more thing aspect that I want to tell you here is that the reason I'm not using the generate keyword often, because writing the code will take some time, right? It's already taking time to write a full line of code and explain. So but in your exam you have to write all this stuff, so you have to keep on practicing with respect to it. Okay, you have to keep practicing how it is written. Okay, just a minute, I think someone mic has been on. Let me mute them. Can I find the person who is okay, I think I can't find it. So please, whoever has a mic on, please turn it off, because it will hamper with the recording. Okay, I hope it has been stopped. Okay, yeah. So we have this thing ready, and now let's create a main function here. So I just created a constructor and the associated field names, and let me try to access it using a different class. So let's say main. So I will, in main I will just write at public static void main, and let me create an since I'm trying to create a database kind of scenario, right, where I have to store multiple values of students with different fields. So let me create that. So I will create an object. So int, for creating multiple objects. So int I equal to 1, I less than equal to 5, I plus plus. Okay, now I will just create a new student called new student, and uh, by default how we do is we will just create a
Hello,
name.
sir.
Yes,
Which topic is going right now?
right now I'm just showing that how an object can also be treated as a database,
Okay, okay,
followed by inheritance.
okay.
Okay, yeah. I have a name, sorry, I have to create an ID followed by name. So let's say B123, date of birth of mine, and Java, this class list is there. Okay, so if you can observe, then ID name is created by ID, it's not by me. So this is for better understanding by the ID itself. So this is how we generally create an simple object with S and all that. But if you have to get multiple objects, let me show you a different style of doing this. And if you want to store the uh, multiple data, basically, uh, for the people, if you want to do that, so let me change few things. Since I'm using a for loop, so let me have this as I, and so ID here I am changing that AB123, and it will add the whatever the value it will concatenate with the ID. And name, since I'm showing for names that how I can write it down. So I can use even switch statement here, which is one of the conditional statements. And so here I can write case1. So I'm just passing the value of name. So if the case is 1, then some name, then case 2, case 3, let me write quickly some few name, case 4, case 5, default. Okay, so now I have created a list of, I will create a list of object of student from which I can directly access. I will create a student with respective the student ID, different ID, and with different kind of cases, and I will print it out, right? To print it out all the stuff, uh, I can directly pass an object. Okay, I can directly pass an object, but the problem will be how to print it. I haven't written a print statement. Now, to assess such kind of stuff, uh, there's a common methodology method that people use to print all the data related to a class. That is called as toString method, and that can be also generated automatically. So if I click on generate and click on generate and uh, click toString, and I will uh, pass on the strings which I need to be printed out. Okay, now if I do this, okay, and then I can create the string object like that. So it is automatically showing my like this, and I will tell you the meaning of override in few minutes. So but let's first run this thing and let's see how it will work. Let's go to this, and am I missing something here? Why it is showing red? Okay, let's print it out. Okay, so again what I have done, I just take a student Java where I can just store the values. For that, again I have what I have done is I'm just creating one object again and again, and I'm passing one of these values, and I'm printing it out. So it's to emulate that how a database would work in this case, and why a plain old Java object can consider as an entity which can store multiple amounts of data, right? So I'm not showing object as an array, just an emulation of that. So let's see, it is taking some time to build in the system. I hope some error will not come. Yeah, so what I have, so for each different IDE, unique IDE, it is taking one of the each of the cases. It taking, since I haven't provided any other birth date, so it is taken directly as it is, and class list. Okay, so two concepts that we have to see here. Okay, first concept, rest of the thing you have seen. The two new concept that you have to see here is uh, first the toString aspect. Okay, the toString aspect, it is coming by default in most of the Java classes. By default, in the method will be there where you can use it to print out all the existing instance variable present in the in that particular object or in that class. Okay, so we have seen different values for each object. So for that, for each object we can print this class. Okay, now that's the first thing. It is similar to getter and setter function. Just like how we create getter and setter function, similarly we can use toString to print out our value. We don't have to create another method called print to print out all their variables and all. Okay, it is considered by default. So you have to use this word toString properly. Okay, it has this particular format similar to getter and setter. Similarly, if I create getter setter, which we have seen earlier, so I'll just click on that and it will create directly on this point. Okay, so these are the way getter setter are by default. It should be used to access the variable or set some values to variable. Similarly, toString is one of such functions. Okay, now let's talk about override. So override is also called as annotation. Okay, so consider it like a comment, not exactly comment. It will be looked by the compiler to understand that toString has been overwritten. Now where the toString is coming, it is coming from something called as object class. Okay, so I will talk about object class later, but what it tells about that if I have written at the rate override, that means this function, this class has been inherited uh, directly with some kind of upper classes through which all these things are learning. Okay, because you're writing public class or any class, it has to it's not directly just making class, it has been inherited through by default class in the Java which we don't know as of now. Okay, so in that, toString is one of the famous functions that Java has provided. Now if we just provide toString and don't return anything, it will print something else. So let's see. If I don't do anything, um, let me do like this. Sorry, I just say return. mm, okay, I'll just say return ID, uh, name, date of birth, and class list. Sorry, um, class list. Okay, I think it will give an error for sure because I'm passing only one value. Let's say I will just give only one value for ID right now. Okay, and if I just go there and just print s value, I think it will provide me only ID value. Okay, I will show you properly what toString works. But for you just to understand that this is considered as a one of the important string like getter and setter functions. Okay, so let it build in the time. Let's talk about more about annotation. Um, so so if you have seen earlier Java code, so there is something called annotation is there. That means a kind of metadata and additional information. Okay, so they are more structured, and Java takes Java take that into an account. The reason why we have to providing it, even though it doesn't have any effect on the code, is just to tell the compiler that if a certain kind of code is not working, and if say that it is overridden or something like that, it can provide us a better kind of information. It can provide us better kind of way to tell that why the output is input is or output is not working. So if the code is not working, okay, so it doesn't affect the code. The code will still run without annotation, but it's always a very good practice to use the word overridden. Okay, now overridden method is not the same thing as overloaded method. Okay, so it we use it because it specified a method signature which has been used present earlier in some other classes as well. Okay, okay, so I will talk about more about toStrings later, especially the overridden part. So uh, let's talk about it slowly. But this is something you will see very often in our code from now onwards, especially in the inheritance part. Okay, so this aspect is needed to be introduced before we start the inheritance. So let's start about inheritance now. So inheritance is kind of a form of code reuse. Okay, it's like parent-child hierarchy, right? So let's create one example for that. So we'll use the same example of the general way how we use it. that is animal and the animal kingdom. So we will create maybe animal and maybe a dog followed by some other class among this. So one aspect of it, that child has only one direct parent in Java. You can't have two parents, only one parent. But a parent can have multiple childs. Okay. So we will see with respect to it. The words called subclasses, parent class, we will see over the period of time. So let's build one animal class first. So this is called as class diagram, where the top part uh, it's about the methods. So it's about the variables that we have to write in the state variables we have to write in class, and the below the dotted line are the methods that we are using. Okay, the reason I'm using this class diagram to because it can concise the way we can talk about what is the requirement of our requirement of our to make a class. Okay, so let's look into that. And so I have then followed by I have to make a dog, okay, which should be inherit a dog, and let's see how it will inherit it. Okay, so let's start with the code, and I will create a new class called animal. So let me first define the animal properly, and then followed by we will look into other aspects. So let's say private string types, okay, and private string size and private double weight. So I'm taking three states of parameters with respect to the so three states of the class of an animal: type, size, and weight. Okay, and then I will create a constructor. So I'm directly using generator. Yes.
So, what have you discussed with me?
Till right now we just discussed that how object can also be considered can be used as a database kind of way, where you just have a data, you have only instance variable, and then you can use this for storing multiple type of information like a student record, kind of like that. I just showed that part. So, so nothing is much different from what we have seen earlier. It's just a way of looking the same concept what we have seen, defining a class, defining the variable names and all that, and then how to store that using the objects. Okay. Okay. Now we have the strings, and let's create. We have three animal class and all that, and according to it we have two more functions, move and make noise. So let's make that as well. So public void move string speed and system dot out dot println type plus, let's say, moves. So we're taking which kind of animal it is and how it moves with a certain speed. Okay, that is the one thing. And we have to make the noise. So public void make noise and system dot out dot println type plus make some kind of noise. Okay, so we have created this. Now let's to print it. These are the only for functioning printing. I just want also, if I want to print the object, like what it contains, to do that, like earlier I have said, we can use toString as a parameter, like getter and setter. So I can directly generate it from here, two strings, and so Javlang override. Let's not use this right now. Okay, so here it will just print out the whatever the object that we are looking, and what is the values of that each state variable that we are having. Okay, so this is part is done. We have created animal. Now let's create a simple another class called maybe inheritance in this case. So here we will try to access it. So public static void main, and for now let's create simple animal object to see how it will work. So new animal, so I will say some generic animal which is a type, and what is the size of that animal and how much it weighs. Okay, and then okay, to print certain things I will just create another uh, function, let's say a static one. So public static void some do animal stuff and animal string speed. Okay, so let's define this, and I'll just call animal dot make noise and animal dot move, which I will provide with the speed variable, and I just print out what the object look like, what is the data present in that object. So if I just do call animal, it will go and invoke this toString uh, function directly, because it will take care of that. I don't have to call explicitly toString here. If I just call this, it will go and invoke it. That's why it is one of the default functions that Java provides here. And then I'll just, for a separator, I'll just put println. Okay. Okay, now I'll just call this do stuff animal. So do animal, sorry, do animal stuff, and then I will pass down this object. I will tell how fast the speed of that animal is. So let's me say as slow. So once I do it and just try to run this thing, so I just created animal object, and I'm just passing through a inheritance to see that everything in animal is fine. So let it run. So from in the do animal stuff itself, I'm calling the make noise and other move, which are the um, behavior of the animal that we have defined here with some of the print statements, and we are just printing out the animal object, what is the value present in that with by toString. Okay, so that is one thing that we are trying to do. And okay, so this is the output that we are getting right now. So first in inheritance, in .java we have called that it should first make some noise function. So it provides that animal type plus make some noise. That's what we have written. So it's just saying the generic animal, which is the type that we have provided here, and the object, it is working perfectly fine. It tells about how the animal moves. It is slow. It is also provides same, and it is returning and the animal, what is the kind of values the animal contains. Okay, all work is perfectly fine. So animal is working pretty fine. So let's do one more thing. What we'll do is we will just create a doc class, and just create its variables and constructor, and let's see how it will work. Okay, so to do this, let me create a new class. So let me name it as dog, and so I have to use the keyword called extend animal because I'm inheriting it now. Okay, so what extend means? So extend is basically a keyword which tells that I'm extending a superclass, in this case animal in this case. Okay, so we can say dog is a subclass of animal, or animal is a parent class of that. And in extend clause I can only specify only one class, no more than one class is not allowed. Okay, let's talk about super also. uh, so let me define first the variables of the dog class. So private string ear shape and private string tail shape. Okay, and let me create a constructor for them also. um, so I will just say that public dog, and I will just pass on super, the name, the size of that animal, and how much it weighs. Okay. So I've created a constructor called nameDog, and I'm calling super function. So what will happen from super, it will call the constructor of a animal class. In this case is this, and after calling this, it will print out the remaining aspect of it. So let's see. I just defined the classes, and I haven't defined ear shape and all. I'm just calling this constructor here. I haven't defined constructor for this. So let's see how it will work. So let's go to inheritance.java, and uh, what I will do is I will just create an object called dog, and I will just say new dog, and do animal stuff. I'll just call this function, I'll just call dog, and I will just say how fast, whether it's slow or fast as animal. And if I just run this, yeah, so now it is working perfectly fine. So for the dog object, the line 6 and 7 in the inheritance.java, I've inherited the code, and in this I just defined some variables, and only I've assigned a constructor which is actually pointing out to the constructor of its parent class. Now once I constructed it, it's still giving me a kind of output that it wants to show to me. Okay, now the reason it is providing animal as output, not any other, not dog, is because I don't define anything, and the constructor is already pointing to its parent class, right? So that's why it is showing me animal. Let's see how to make it dog as well. Okay, so what it tells is, after adding so much of lines of code in animal.java, I just need to, through dog.java also, I just need to pass certain values, and it will print out the same kind of things which I want in a dog as well. That it can make some kind of noise, it can move fast or slow, kind of like that. Okay, so that is the power of super also. So it's a way to call a constructor on super class directly from the subclass constructor. Okay, like this constructor this function that we have seen in the last class in the constructor chaining, we'll talk about more later. For that, it has to be first statement in the constructor. Okay, that's why this function, super function, can never be called from the same constructor. Okay, and if you and suppose if you don't make call a super constructor, then Java makes it for you. It will create a default super constructor as well. Okay, so that is one of few of the constructors condition that you have to pass, and if you're explicitly calling it, so you have to pass the right arguments to the constructor. So now let's make properly all the functionality of the dog class, and let's see how inheritance plays a role in this aspect. So let's go here, and now let's create a constructor in this. So let's make a first full constructor. So I will just make a full constructor here to using generate constructor. um, I think I need super also. Let's see whether I can get it or not. Yeah, I'm getting it. I have written this dot tail shape. Okay, let generate it one more time. So constructor, I will press on both the options, and it will create it. So now I've created a constructor with all the values. So it will also collect type, size, double, and weight as well, along with the string, ear shape, and tail shape. Now why? Because we are extending the animal, so it also expects, and since we're also going to invoke the parent class constructor, it is the Java compiler expect that when you're creating a dog class, it should also take these kind of values as well. That is type, size, double, which is present in animal.java, not in animal.java, not in dog.java. Okay, so let's do few things here. Um, so let's not take the size, let's take the size depend on the weight. So how we can do this? we can define a condition here using tertiary. So let's say if I say that weight is less than 15, okay, and if it is less than 15 it is called small, or weight is less than 35, then it is called shape will be size will be medium, and or if it's false it is called as large. Okay, so this is how also you can, using a expression also you can define the kind of value that you want to pass it down. Okay, now once we have this, we have defined the constructor, and only two things remain here. That means we have to make few things. So let's right now uh, do, apart from bark and run, let's right now use the same and function called make noise and move. Okay, and let's see how it will work. So let's go here, and let's write it as public void move, sorry, make noise, and so let's write it as maybe uh, print out, or okay, let me define all the classes first, all the function here first, and then let me use make noise. Okay, because I have to show something with the make noise as well. And if you can see certain symbol here on the left hand side of the make noise, this symbol, if you click on this, it tells that the same function of make noise is available in the parent class as well. So this symbol signifies that the same method is present in there, so it will act as a overwritten. Even though I haven't written here, it will, IDE can directly identify that. But for that I will come down to it later. So let me do this also. Public void move and string speed. Okay, and let me define it little later. For now, let me define the four functions that we are having, that is bark, run, walk, and backtail. So public void bark and public void run. Let me copy a few things. System.out println, and I will just write it as some print statement for this. Let me complete this part. Dog running, and let me copy this function. Okay, so we have walk, and let me change few things. Dog walking and tail wagging. Okay, now if you can see, none of the symbol that we are seeing here for move and make noise is coming near park and run. Reason is because these two functions, the highlighted one, are present in the parent class. Okay, so only IDE is showing us for that. It doesn't it's just too for as a developer to know that this means as overridden function. So let me do few things here. So I will show that one with override that we have seen, and one without override. Okay, so I will not write anything for the public noise, and I will, for move function, I will write override. Will it make difference? The actual answer is no, but just to show that what is the best practices for it. Now let me write few things here. So super dot move speed. So I'm calling the using super keyword, I am calling the move function from the animal class, and I'm printing out whatever present there. Otherwise I can define certain conditions as well. So speed if is equal to slow, I can just call as, I will just call certain function here. Okay, else and run and park. So I'm just defining four functions that we define here in the move. Okay, and in make noise, if type equal to let's say wolf, so system dot out println, so some noise that a typical wolf will make. Otherwise, if it's not there, I just call the bark function. I'm not doing else here. Okay, so here what we have done, we have defined the whole class, okay, with the variables, with the constructors, okay, uh, with the methods that has to be defined here, plus we are also calling the function methods which we have present in the parent class. Okay, in that also we have two types. Here we are explicitly specifying that we are overriding a function in the move. Here we are not specifying it. Okay, so let's see how it will work as of now. So let's go to inheritance.java and let's define some more objects here. So let me define some doggy name and new dog Yorkie, do animal stuff. Yorkie is fast. Okay, this is one, and let's define something else here. Okay, so here I'm just defining Dorgian 15, so it is showing me some kind of red line here. So why it is showing? Because I don't have a constructor which deals only with two variables. Here I am having the say two parameters. Here I am 4 or here I have none. So what I can do, I can create new constructor here with only two variables. So to do that, public dog, I'll just say string ear shape and string tail shape. Okay, now what I can do here is um, I have if you have taken the last lecture, it is the concept called as constructor chaining. So what I can do here is what I'm exactly passing, let me check. So I'm passing the type and the tail shape. See, I'm passing the type and the weight actually. So I should take that into the account, not the other thing. So let's say string type and double weight. Okay, so I'm doing this and using the constructor chaining, I'm calling type weight and let's say I'm providing some default values here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm passing type and weight to this constructor, the followed class constructor, where all the values are available, and from here it will show me the value. If I go here, now the red line has been gone in this creating the new dog thing, and it will work fine. Okay, let's this thing, and let me add few more objects here. So let's add dog retriever and new dog, and I will pass the value Labrador retriever, its weight, its ear shape, and what is the tail shape is. And again I'm calling do animal stuff retriever and passing the how fast or slow the speed of that dog is. Okay, last mode I have taken the wolf, so wolf as a new object dog, and I will just type wolf and I'll just pass on the weight and do animal stuff wolf and slow. Okay, so we have written a lot of code with respect to it, and we till now, so we have created animal.java, we inherited dog.java with all the functionalities. We have defined 3 different type of constructors, and to retrieve this we have defined 3 different ways through which we can call that create an object. So let's run this first. So it is building right now. It will give me an error now. Okay, fine. Now I think it will be fine. Let it complete it. Okay, obviously it is giving me an error here. So void run is already defined here. So why? Okay. I have to find tail. What is that name? Is backtail. Okay, that is the first error. Type has private access in animal. Okay, symbol can't assign it. Okay, so let's take one aspect into it. So yeah, the one of the errors that we are getting is type. So even though we can access its methods and variables, the problem is saying that type has a private access in animal. Okay, which seems fair. So what we can do to override this, we can just increase its access modifier from private to protected. Okay, now it will work fine. Now cannot find symbol called backtail, that is fine, and intent or cannot variable retriever. Okay, so I think it should work fine. So we have created protected to type. Okay, so we have created a change access modifier from private to protected. Now if you have protected, subclasses can access them. Okay, but the classes which are not inherited or linked to that, they can't access it. And from protected you can also access through the friends class. We will see that friends class later. So let me run it again. Okay, now let's see few things here. So it is showing me properly all the answers, that is fine. Okay, so for dog, for the object called Yorkie, for the retriever, or for the wolf, it is showing me the properly answer, that the what is the sound of that, how it walks, or whether it's walk. If it's slow, that means its dog is walking in tail wagging, kind of like that. But the important part is I'm creating a dog object, so why I'm getting an animal thing? Okay, so reason is when I'm trying to print this stuff, and even though it's animal and animal, okay, uh, we might think that because it is considered as animal, that's why it is just printing me this animal type. Okay, the rationale is correct, but internally Java compiler will know that it's not an animal object, it's a dog object, and since dog is inherited with the animal, that's why it can consider this expression properly. Okay, that's the first aspect. Second thing is I have to, just like animal, I have to also have to create toString function as well here. Okay, so that has been not written here, so it is directly going to animal.java. So to do this, I will just go in dog.java, and after this constructor, let me generate it directly. Generate toString, and I will use template called concat plus superstring because we are using all the variables here. Okay, so let's write it down. Okay, now if I try to run inheritance dot thing, I think here for instead of animal I should get dog first followed by the animal. So let's see how it will go. So if you have any question till now, please put out in chat. Okay, so first it will show what the dog object contains, followed by what the animal object contains with respect to it. Now you have to remember that um, the animal object that I'm having here, the type Labrador and all, it is uh, the value of Labrador Retriever and ear shape and all, it is stored, it has been linked together properly, right? So if I'm providing different values for like the wolf or the ear shape and all, it has been stored separately. A separate object for animal dog has been created where all this information will be stored separately. Okay, so that is an important aspect of inheritance. And even though you might creating one object, through this all the variable size within the construct of their class objects has been created separate instances variable, where if even if you try to in inheritance.java, even though you're defining a dog and you're and giving the value of wolf to a variable called type which is present in animal, it is able to make differentiate that it is part of animal, and that part of an wolf which is a name assigned, it is specifically related to wolf only, not a retriever, not to any other dog object, right? So these are things which taken care precisely by the Java, and you don't have to worry about it. But as you can see, the animal wolf and the ear-shaped dog, the combination dog what you have specified has been maintained by the uh, has been taken care by uh, the Java itself. Okay, so this is the just one explanation of the inheritance. And I think almost one hour is over. So we will take the question first, followed by break. But in the second part, we will again do inheritance, because while you're doing inheritance will take time for you understand, because not understand, basically to write and to link that different concept. Because for simple two classes to joining, we have written so much of line of code, right? And because of that, it will take a lot of understanding about the linking of which object, how it is linked to another, kind of like that. So it takes some time to you. So I will show you one more example of inheritance as a challenge which we'll try to solve, followed by any other questions. So yeah, if you have any question with respect to this part of animal class that we have created, please let me know. I'll just look at the chat section first, or you can unmute yourself as well. Okay, if we have any questions, please let me know. Okay, so in that case, we'll take a 5 minutes break. Okay, so it's 7:02, maybe 7:07 will come, and then we will look at the inheritance part much more clearly. Okay, in the meantime, you can, if you have any questions, you can put that in the chat section as well. Thank you. So we'll start at 7:07. Okay, welcome everyone again. So we will start the session. So if you have any question with this book inheritance, please let me know as of now. And so while doing this, we have done something called as polymorphism as well in the code, but I haven't explained explicitly where we have done. But the hint is wherever we have written the aspect of overridden, there's a annotation there we have done few aspects related to that. But uh, so let's go to that part as well, uh, overridden method. So let's talk about it a little bit first. So what we are doing is a kind of code reuse when using inheritance, right? So but when overriding method, overriding is happen only when you have a parent parent child relationship or a subclass superclass relationship, and in that the method name is same, signature of the method is same. Okay, so when you override a parent, that means child class want to show something different behavior for that method. That's what we call the override, overriding a method. Okay, and that is a part of something called as polymorphism, which we'll talk about a little bit by the end of the session. Okay, now an overridden method can do one of the three things. It can implement completely different behavior or overriding a behavior of a parent. Okay, so right now we have we, earlier what we have seen, we have override little bit of the behavior of that. Okay, or it can simply call the parent class method, which is somewhat redundant to do. Okay, or the method class can call the parent method class and include the other code to run so that it can extend the functionality. So actually we have done this. So we have called the superclass method of that move, and then we have added some more print statement for the dog, right? So these are three ways, basically three of the things that you can try to do. So I'm not going to, if we add additional fish, that how it will work. So here also I have to inherit an animal. I can't inherit a dog here. So it will, so we can see that still fish has, if we do like this, still a fish will be having um, uh, is inherited to only one class. So I'm not doing it. Let's skip to a challenge where we are we will look into more into the aspect, and I will talk about polymorphism as well a little bit in later. Okay, okay, so before that I have to show you something. So when we talk about toString class, right? So the toString function that we have seen in this code often for the first time in animal and the dog as well. Let me go to that code. Oh, this is the one I needed, sorry. So this part, right? So it is a it's a one of the famous functions and which has been used, and that the reason that we write override even though animal is a class and we are not inheriting it with someone, it's come down to fact that there's something called as object class. Okay, now uh, so what it says, let's look into that. So class object is the root of the class hierarchy. So since Java is a class related mechanism, so we should have some topmost hierarchy from where everything has been accessed or extended to. Okay, so one such class is called as public class object. The name of that is itself is object, and it belongs to a package called java.lang.object. Okay, so from here you can create an object, you can define a class, all this stuff will come into picture. And one of the functions that we are having is toString. So it return the representation of an object. Okay, so that's why whenever, even though you're creating any class, be it animal, dog, or anyone which you want to create, by default Java will make it as a link to the object class itself. And if you trying to have some functions which is present in the object class, that means you are overriding it, because by default an inheritance has been created between the class that you are creating, be it public class and uh, uh, created with the object class. Okay, so by default it will connect any class you are making with this class for sure. Okay, so uh, so again, to deal with more aspect into it, So even the string class through which we have string class, like when we define a string variable, right, it is also a class and which also inherits with the object or any main class that we are trying to do, right? So every class inherits from the object. That is what we am trying to say here. So by default it is like this, and this is how the structure is there. Okay, so this is something about the object class that you are having. Okay, and even the toString thing present in the string class as well. That's why uh, the certain function which are available in the top hierarchical class, it's uh, and when you try to generate it automatically, the annotation of override will come present, even though you haven't seen this, but it is present somewhere in the classes through which this animal class has been extended into. Okay, in this case the object. Okay, so let's go to inheritance challenge. So where we will make it a little bit complex. Here we will have 4 classes with their own methods and the variables, uh, fields, and let's see how it will work. Okay, so I have to create a worker class, I have to create an employee class, salary class, and hourly employee class. Each class has its own methods and own attributes, like as shown in this class diagram. Okay, so uh, let's look one by one. So what I have to do is worker and employee is simple. That is, by default I have to create worker and employee for sure. But now I can execute either salaried employee or hourly employee. For in this case I will implement both. So if I am creating salary employed, so there is certain function of retire is there. For hourly employee, the function is called get double pay, and it has certain more aspect to the salaried employee and hourly employee. So let's go into that a little bit. First, let's complete the worker and employee part, and let's connect them with a class, a certain class through which we can access worker and employee both, and see how it will work out. Okay, because from here, since we have more classes, the point of this example to show you that when you try to call it, it will make you a little bit complex to understand which you are calling which object to whom, which function to whom. Okay, which object is calling to which function, and that function is related to which class. All the stuff will come into picture. So the challenge is for that. So let's do this thing. So let me create a class called worker. So this is a parent class in this case, and followed by employee, which is the subclass of the worker class. So let's me create the parent class first. So private string name, private string birth date, and uh, let's say protected string end date. Okay, now let me create a constructor here. So I'm directly generating it to save the time. So constructor taking all the values, and then I'm creating this. Now what else they have? It has get int age, double collect play, and terminate string end date. So let's create that one. So functions like public int get age. So how I know it's get int? So it is defining whether it should be the return type is int followed by the get age. Okay, double is like that. If I don't have any return type, that means it's a void. Okay, so get age, then so I'm doing some kind of string manipulation because everything I'm passing as string right now. I've not introduced the concept of data variable, so that we will look at some other session. So let's say current year is 2024. So let me do some calculation here. So birth year, integer dot parse int. So what I will do, some pre-processing. So using birth date, which is a string in this case, I will try to find the substring of the year that I am having. So that substring is I have to specify the position from which I have to consider substring. That means my date, birth of date will be like dd mm y. Okay, so here we have 6 characters. So 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the sixth position will start from the for the year. So I am trying to extract that uh, substring from the birth date, and I'm converting that into int and passing that into the int birth year. Okay, that is a string manipulation I'm currently doing, and I'm just returning that current year minus birth year. Okay, so if you observe that I just provided this aspect and I haven't there's no much detail about what is get age is will be like. So in questions also on your thing, they might just say this is how it is. Since it is easy, simple to understand, they might expect you to write the logic of the code directly, okay, without specifying how you can calculate the get age. So that is there, and then public double collect pay. Okay, so for now just return certain value 0.0, then public void terminate string end date, and I can just pass it on as string end date is equal to end date. Okay, now another thing I want to discuss here, that usually in a typically any constructor we are creating, we might need to we specify all the kind of variable that we're having, but this is not generally the rule. You can skip this part as well for now. Okay, so even if skip it, since we are not using it, we can skip like this and we can work pretty much fine to it. Okay, but we will see what is the error it might get if we get into some trouble. Okay, and the last thing, that is the toString thing, where I just want to print out the object accessing to the worker.java. So I'm just generating it with the help of toString. So I'm just doing this and this will work. Okay, so let me write it down like this, and this is the worker.java is completed with the variable names and with respect to the functions that we are having. Now let's now create a class called employee. Okay, now
Sir,
yes,
sir, can you go a bit slow, sir?
you want to go a bit slow in
A
with
bit slow, please.
with respect to what you want, like while typing the code, explaining the aspect.
I mean, typing and explaining. With one program, I can take it very slowly so that you can understand.
Okay, okay,
Time
okay.
constraint is there. I understand.
Yeah, because the code I'm going to write, it will be little bit big.
But please make sure that.
Okay, okay, sure. Okay, what I can do is let me write off the code and I will again explain the code once it because typing will take most of the time here rather than explaining. So, okay, yeah. So right now employee in this case has only two variables, two attributes or two fields, not the any methods. So we will just pass this thing on here and let's see what will happen here. So no function, so it's for simplicity of the challenges. So let's create the what is there, employee ID and hire data. One is from long variable and one is for string variable, string data type, sorry. So private long employee ID, okay, private string hire data, so it hire date. Okay, so this is there, and let me create,
Sir, will it extend, sir?
sorry, which extend,
Will
oh
it,
yes,
employee
yes, yes,
class will it
exactly, exactly, it has to extend. Thank you for reminding. Yeah, it has to extend because based on the challenge you have to extend it, because it is pointing upward. That means all the it can access the workers classes and methods and the variables. Okay, So let's create the right now the constructor. So I'm just generating it directly. So public constructor and doing like this. Okay. Now few things here. Again, since I'm extending the worker, so it's asking for birth, string birth name, birth name, employee ID, hire data, like that. Not the end data. The reason is in the public worker that we have defined as a class as a constructor in worker.java, we haven't specified end date. So that's why when you're creating employee.java also, the ID can relate that since I haven't used end date, so it is not adding end date even though it's one of the fields. Okay, so it will not have any effect as of now because we will use end date only for specifying explicitly by not creating an object. So that is one of the reason. Super function will call the constructor that we have created there with the attributes of name and birth date, and employee ID we are just passing out here with employee ID and hire data. Okay, now one more thing we can do is we have seen the concept of static variables earlier, right? So it used as a counter. So if I don't want to keep on adding the new ID for the employees, what I can do, I can create a static counter here. So I will just write employee number equal to 1. Okay, so what it will do is I will just create a static int employee number. It will be a one copy throughout all the object variable, and I will keep on incrementing this employee number whenever I am creating this constructor. So what I can do, employee ID, I can just write it as employee dot employee number plus plus. Okay, so it will always assign a value of employee ID plus 1 to the previous one. Okay, so if it's assigned as 1, so it will assign number 2 to the new object that it is trying to create. Okay, so this is how a static variable can also be used. Okay, so that is one thing. And to show that this if you want to print that okay we have come this object has been related to employee, we are using this toString class, toString method. So I will just do this, generate string concat plus and super toString. Okay, I'm choosing this option, I'm pressing it OK. So it will create toString as a function, and it is printing it out, and it is calling the super toString. That means it will go to worker.java and it will also print the toString function which is present here. Okay, so let's this is the employee class that we have created as of now. Now what we will do is we'll create a new class called inheritance challenge, and let's try to access worker and employee first, then we will go to the further two classes as of now. So let's create a new class. I will name it inheritance challenge. Okay, public static void main. Then now let me create a new employee first. So employee, new name, I'm giving my name as employee, and new employee, and I can pass the value of my name, my birth date, okay, then I can pass my hire date, let's say. So hire date is 01/06, let's say 2019, like that. So now one more thing might happen here, that I might get an error here because in employee I'm not further using employee ID. Okay, because I'm calculating employee ID using a static variable, so I can just remove this aspect as of now. So you have to keep looking at this aspect as well. So if you keep on adding, if I'm using static variable, I am using it somewhere, that means I'm not using something else pass. So in this case I forgot to remove the employee ID in this case, so that's why I have to remove it now. So I'm just removing it. So I just need 3 parameters name, birth date, and hire date. So in inheritance.challenge, I'm calling this and passing this value, the object will be created and system.out.println. So if I just pass out my object name, okay, then what I can do is through my object in worker I have two more further function, that is collect pay and the get age. So I will try to access it using using the employee object. So let's do that. So system dot out dot println age equal to John dot get age. So simple property, because I'm inherited the employee class to worker class, I can access its functions given it's public. If it's private, I can't access them directly. I have to use some different mechanism. So age is there, and then I will just write collect pay and object name dot collect pay. Okay, so if I just run this code, let's see if there's some issues are there or not. If someone has any questions, please let me know. If I just let me check the chat also. I think this no. Okay. Yeah, I think output is there. So you can see. So how you can, the reason I have printed out all this stuff to for you to understand that how the workflow is happening right now. Even for the simple we are using three classes, one class to access two classes, and two classes are related to each other using inheritance. So I'm creating an object called Ishan here. Now that object is first created uh, and the object has been created with the employee ID 1 and the particular hire date. So that object has been created. Now from here we have, since it is inherited to worker, again it has been created here, and since end date has not been provided, it's providing as null, end date as null. Okay, and it has calculated my age based on the logic that I have provided in the get age and the collect pay. If I haven't provided any logic for that, so I'm getting this kind of value. Okay, so that means inheritance working properly for worker and employee.java. Okay, so what we'll do is, let's go to the next step, that is the further conditions of creating two other classes. So let's go into that and try to understand. So what happening here is, a salaried employee is paid based on some percentage of his or her salary. If a person is retired, then the salary may be 100%, but it's generally somewhat reduced. And hourly employee is paid by the hours worked by and the hourly rate they agree upon. An hourly employee may also get a double pay if they work over certain amount of hours. Okay, so salaried employee has two fields: annual salary, or whether it's retire or not, and the function called retire. And an hourly employee class has one variable called hourly pay rate and get double pay. So given this data, let's try to see how we can extend the employee to these two classes, and how we can access the other functions that we have created so far. So to do this, let me create another class called salaried employee. And so here I have only two variables. So let's say write private double annual salary and private boolean is retired. Okay, now two variables has been made. First thing first that we will do is create a constructor for it. So I'm creating it automatically. Okay, since I have to extend it to employee, so extends to employee. Okay, now let's create a constructor. Okay, now as you can see, employee, it, even though it's extended to employee, it can also access the worker class variables as well, that is name, birth date, end date, kind of like that. So in salaried employee, I am getting automatic string name, but I can access birth date, hire date, I can pass it on. So if I'm creating an object for salaried employee, I have to pass these values as well. Okay, plus annual salary or is retired or not. So sorry. So for now, what I will do here is, for retire, it's a boolean value, so I'm not keeping it for now. So let's remove it. String name, birth is coming from the constructor of the worker class. Hire date is coming from the employee class. So these are the three variables that we are having. So uh, so because of that, a hire date is coming, and only other aspect is annual salary. So when I'm calling super name, birth date, and hire date, it will call to the employee class constructor, and it will run again the super of the worker class. Okay, so there's two level of hierarchy is happening currently. Also, it will assign me an employee ID, which we'll see right now in example how it is working, and plus a hire date. Now once it is done, then we're assigning uh, annual salary to certain annual salary passed to the object during object creation. Okay, and then we have one more function which is called as retire. So let me write it down. Retire. So if I have retire, I will call a function called terminate, and I will pass on the some date. So what is my retire value is. So, and I will just put that is retired equal to true. Okay, so till now we have in worker class we have a function called terminate, which we haven't used as of now. Now first time we are using it in salaried employee part, where we are calling the terminate function, and it is and then I'm passing, if this function is gone, that means the employee is going to retire. Okay, so I'm passing the date as well as the true value into this. Okay, now this is one aspect to it. Now another aspect that we have to see here is, apart from retire, I also need to uh, look at the collect pay, because it is asking me to calculate what is my, based on my annual salary, I have to tell what is my pay. So to do that, I have to override the function. So I will overriding what function I will do. I will override the function of collect pay that is present in worker.java. So this function I'm going to override, and I'm going to write a specific function specifically for salaried employee. So once I'm doing this, so let me write it down. So public double collect pay. Okay, so even if you're not able to understand the override concept as of now, it's okay, but now you just assume that since the same name function is present in my parent class, parents class, that is worker.java, I do need to write override here. Now I will just define some variable, that is my paycheck is of whatever the annual salary I'm having divided by some 26 or 12, whatever you want to have. Now adjusted pay, and this value will become based on whether I'm retired or not. So is I'm retired, if it is true, it is true, that is this whatever the function I'm writing is the amount that I will get during my retirement, otherwise I will get my regular paycheck. And then I will just print it out to return the value int to the adjusted pay. Okay, so we have written one function of collect pay. That means through our annual salary we are calculating with certain amount, we're getting the paycheck, and also we're checking passing that whether the person is retired or not. If it is false, by default we haven't defined any value here, so it will consider as default false only. So if it is true, then it will calculate the pension value, otherwise it will not, it will calculate the it will pass on the value what we have calculated just earlier, a line above. So once this is done, our salaried employee part is over. So let's go to inheritance challenge first and uh, see whether it is working or not. So let me create a new employee. So I will just call it from salaried employee now. So I'll just give me some name and new salaried employee, and I have to pass my the employee information. Let's say some birth date and some hire date, and I have to pass the annual salary. So this is how I have created the object. Now let me take everything as same as earlier and just copy paste it down. That is, I'm printing out what the object, how the object is looking like, to see what kind of objects classes I have been called upon, and I will look at the age and what is my collect pay. So if I run this code now, it is building now. So what we have done, we have created a new class called salaried employee with specific variables of annual salary is retired, and we have created a functionality specific to salaried employee that is retired, and also we calculated what is the paycheck of that. So let's go to inheritance.java where I defined the new sal object name, and so let's see what is how it is will be. So the first one that I'm highlighting right now is coming from the object first, that is the Ishan name. The object 2, it is from the Sayam name. So how, let's see that how it is working right now. Employee, even though it's a salaried employee name here, it is just calling the employee here, employee and the worker. The reason is why it's not calling the salaried employee object also, because we haven't defined a toString function that we have defined in most of the other parts, right? So here I have defined here the toString class, so function. The same thing I haven't defined here, that's why it's not showing. But if I define that here also, you can see the difference. So let me put that here as well. So generate toString and okay. I don't need java.lang. Okay, so now it is calculating correctly, paying collect pay is also working fine. Okay, so now let's do last more thing, that is last part, that is I have to create hourly employee. So this is the fourth class we are trying to create, and this is we are again inheriting from the class called employee. Okay, so let me create that part as well quickly. So again I will go Java class and I will create hourly employee. Okay, which extends employee class, and it has only one variable called pay hourly pay rate, and I have a function called get double pay. So only this one function and one variable. So let's one field. So let me write as double hourly pay rate, and again a constructor. So I'm generating one. So I can say same as earlier thing, the name, it asking for name, birth date, hire, hourly pay rate, like that. Okay, now super will be the super birth date, hire date and all that, and this hourly rate from this. Then I have a function called public double get double pay. So let me write it down. So I just have to return that what is my current salary will be. From that current salary I will get a double pay. Okay, so I have to write a collect pay as well. So to write collect pay specifically for this particular class, I have to override it, and I will just write public double collect pay. So by per week, like that, I'm just calculating some function. So if I just do this, okay, so now the collect pay we have written in three places: one in hourly employee, second in salaried employee, this one, and one in worker.java. That is the topmost, the parents class in this case. Okay, so we have defining these four classes: worker, employee, salaried employee, and hourly employee together, and we are accessing them using inheritance challenge. So now let's do small little last end part of it, that to see that how it is working. Okay, so what I will do is I will call, using this function, I will call whether the salaried employee is retired or not, to show you that how the coding works here. And then system.out.println, just small changes. Same.collect pay. Okay, so I'm just trying to access the retire function from the salaried employees as well. For that I have written the code. Now let's do for hourly employee as well. So hourly employee, new, sorry, name, new hourly employee, and then I have to pass on certain information. So age, and let's say some joining date. So let me write at 5/9/2021, and I will pass on the hourly pay rate. Okay, so again you have to see that how a salaried employee constructor and how the hourly employee constructor is different. Here the difference is annual salary in this case, here the hourly pay rate is difference. So you have to keep in mind when you're dealing with the specifically dealing with the inheritance part, because so many variables will come into picture. And then I have copy paste the last three lines for system printing out, and here instead of paycheck, um, instead of age I will just call the Rupa's paycheck, and I'll just call collect pay. And for accessing the double pay aspect also, let me write down changing object name dot get, sorry, double pay. Okay, so yeah, we are almost done. Let's run this code and see things what is happening here. So again we have created four classes called worker, employee, salaried employee, hourly employee. Given the condition provided here, we define all the functions and all, and we created three objects, and one with the simple employee, one with the salaried employee, and one with the hourly employee. And based on that we are just trying to calculate it. So let's see the output like. So we'll see the output from the line number 14, okay, where we are telling that if the employee, the object or the employee is retired, what will happen. So after retiring, it is showing that the pension check is 3461. So how it is calculating? It is calculating based on logic provided in the salaried employee.java class, where the collect pay if you can see the line number 14. Okay, so if the person is retired, if it is yes, so it will get the pension paycheck at 0.9 of the original paycheck. Okay, so that's how the output has been calculated. Now for the employee 3, which is the hourly employee with the name, so we are getting the relevant values, and based on the hourly pay, we are getting this regular paycheck, and if it is holiday pay, we are getting doubling it with it. Okay. Okay, so with that being said, this is a very long program with respect to, and when you write an inheritance code, I haven't added the polymorphism aspect into this also, but it will become big and bigger now. As you can see, it's simple. We are not writing 20-30 lines of code. It's cumulative. It is more than 100 lines of code, and it's taking some time, right? But we have to see how it will making the calls. Okay, so we will talk about it. But before now, if you have any questions as of now, please let me know. Otherwise, I will say that how the calling between the, we have created 3 objects and we have 4 classes. So how it is working, I will just discuss that.
Sir, can you share the code set such that we can execute it?
Yeah. So after uploading and doing the uploading, I will upload all the codes as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, to summarize how it is working, so let's look at it step by step for the object that we are creating, okay, with the name of Siam and Rupa. So we have an object called toString, okay, so let's leave it that part. But now we have worker in which we have the function called getAge, collect_pay, override toString. Employee as another class, we have override toString, getJob. Okay, so and salary, for each salaried employee and hourly employee, we have a respective functionalities. So object 1 Siam can access these 4 functionalities. So we will see these 4 functionality belongs to which class. That is the first thing. Similarly for Rupa's case as well. Okay, so now when we are calling for getAge function for any of this object, it will call the worker. Okay, because there is only one place we have defined it and we haven't overridden it. Okay, now second thing is toString. If we are defining toString, so since we haven't defined anything for salaried employee or hourly employee at that point of time, toString has been called only for the employee class, and that is the output that we have seen here as well. We can see that employee and worker object names only, and the content it has. We haven't defined for salaried employee and hourly employee. So that has been called using the employee class. Third, for collect pay method, we have defined separately for salaried employee and hourly employee, right? So the collect pay as well as retire has been taken care directly by their respective classes. The object from which it is created, that is salaried employed, has been created directly here, and for hourly employee, the function that we define has been calculated, gets the calculated and get the output from the hourly employee function. Okay, so even for a simple problem like this, the function calling has been get access to the methods of different classes, and these classes has been linked together with the help of inheritance. Okay, so that's the thing, and that's how the whole working of this particular problem statement have been played into. And you have to be very while you're writing a code for this, you have to be very conscious of the fact that if you're calling this, you should know that this function, when you're calling it, whether it's belong to its parent class or the subclass. Okay, so that clarity has to be there. So that is why this slide is talking about that aspect. Okay, now there are more theoretical concept into this, that is this and super and method overloading and overriding. But before jumping to it and just give you a brief about what it do, I want to know if you have any questions with respect to the challenge that we have done.
I have one question.
Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Yeah.
We have the base class and the derived class,
Mm-hmm.
but when we are creating the object, we have created an object with the base class, sir, but we have called the derived class constructor, sir.
Okay.
Then I have seen, I think in the week 3 problems, etc., where some doubt is there, sir. So
Yeah.
whether it will call the constructor of the base class or derived class, I have a doubt, sir.
Okay. So I think you might have seen like this. So worker, I'm just not exactly what the thing was, but it is like worker. Let me name as employee 1 new uh, employee. Sorry, it is reverse. So new worker and employee. Okay, this is the actual problem statement that was given in the last time. Okay, so this is valid. Obviously, I have to write some parameters. I don't.
Opposite, sir. Opposite. Worker is the.
No.
Is it not worker is the base class, sir?
Work is the base class.
So that should be on the left side, sir. And
okay.
I think that is one problem.
Okay, that's fine. We can do it here also. This is also fine. Okay, so this is how usually it's written. It actually comes in the concept of polymorphism. Okay, so that's why I haven't touched this part, but okay, let's look into it. Let's try to dissect it, what is actually happening here. Okay, so it will have some parameters which I have no idea about, so let me write as parameters for now. Okay, so let's dissect it. So when I said new employee and some parameters, okay, so what it's creating, it is creating an object of class employee. Okay, this is what actually happening, right? So this part will be very clear with respect to it. Now what is happening, second part is we are having something called as worker employee 1. Now this is called as reference. Okay, this is called a reference, where employee 1 as a reference variable of type worker is trying to access the employee object. Okay, this is what happening. So what does it means? That employee, a variable called employee, just now assume like that, it is trying to access this newly created object. Okay, and the data type of that employee 1 is worker. Now since worker is parent class, okay, work is base class in this case, okay, Java will allow will tell the worker data type that okay, it is inherited from you only. The employee is inherited from worker, so that's why I can allow your data type to reference to that new object. Okay, so worker is a base class and I can access the object of its child derived class. Okay, so that is what Java compiler will tell to the worker, that yes, you can access through employee 1, you can access the object of employee. Okay, so this is the actual meaning of it. So creating an object of class employee, but you are referencing the thing using the referencing the employee object using the variable of worker type. Okay, it's just
so in which case we will do that one, sir? In which case we will do that one?
It is come under polymorphism when you want to try to access only certain functionalities with certain variables, like method overload. When you comes to method overloading and overriding, at that point of time people do it. In real case, most of people don't do it because it becomes confusing, but it is more like a, what you say, tricker problem or challenging problem, a kind of MCQ problem that we try to
yes, sir. When on the left side the base is that generally we will guess like that one, sir.
Yes, it is a worker object, but it's not a worker object, it's an object of class employee only. You are just referencing that like that. Like, okay, so for example, you have seen in right, like when we create int something int I, and you have something called double m, and you have certain calculation where you'll try to do m equal to m plus I. Let's suppose like that. So what it will do, it is try to typecast it from I to m, right, into double, such that because you want to store the output in a double, right. So here the typecasting concept is there, right. Similarly, not exactly similar to the similar concept here, since worker and employee are related to each other through the concept of inheritance, this aspect of typecasting in this form is allowed. Okay, otherwise if employee and worker not related, it will surely give an error specifically. Okay, so
So is it there in the C++, sir? Is the same facility is there in the C++?
I have honestly no idea about C++, so but concept wise it will be there now for sure, it will be there.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's an old concept, so people might use it now. I will try to search for exactly this specific use cases. I will try to give an example for this in the upcoming session, because next session will be on polymorphism. At that point of time, I will give this point off for
Okay,
sure. Yeah. Any other questions with respect to this code? The code that we have written and this inheritance challenge kind of thing. We have defined 4 classes, or any other question related to any other topic. Okay, so let me quickly cover 2 topics here, a theoretical concept which you can read it out later as well while reading, but let me see. Okay, yes, someone has raised the hand, you can ask question as well by unmuting yourself. Okay, so so the difference between this and super and this function and super function, the methods call that we have used it earlier, right? So super is a keyword to access the parent class. Um, it's used to call the parent class. This is very clear, and this keyword is used for current class member. So variable and method. If I have a parameter with same name, so I will use this to classify which is a class variable and which is a local variable with respect to this. Okay, now we can use this keyword anywhere in the class except the static element. Okay, so this is the example. If I have a private int color is there, and I have creating a constructor where I'm passing a color. So this color is basically considered as a local variable. Now to differentiate between local variable and class variable, I have to use this function. Okay, this is how usually it is. It is usually mostly used in setter and constructor, rarely in getter functions. Okay, that is one aspect. Now in super keyword, we are just extracting it. So super.print method. So I have a class called super class, and which extended as a subclass. Subclass extends the super class. So if I have to call the print method, so I will just call it using super.print method. Okay, here since the concept of the same name and the same arguments are there, it is called as overriding. Okay, so this is a super keyword. Now super this and super this function and super call function is a little different. Here we use just the keywords as it is, right, to call the specific function or variable, access a specific variable. Here this function this is usually used in the constructor, this function basically doing the overloaded constructor or called constructor chaining. Okay, so this can be only used in constructor, nowhere else. But parent super usually used in parent constructor as well. Okay, uh, one more thing is um, super and this function has to be first statement of each of the constructor. So that means it can be never used in both the scenario. It can be used in a single constructor. So that is one aspect. So for example, uh, through let's look at the constructor good and bad example, and let's see how we can deal with it with the help of this function. So we have a certain variable and we define the constructor in 3 different ways. Okay, while with no parameters, with certain parameters, with full parameters, right? but this is leads to code duplication kind of stuff. So to avoid it, what we can do is we will use the constructor chaining. That means I have made a public constructor, that is third constructor directly, where I am assigning all the values to all the variables assigned here. So if I have a constructor with no parameters, I will call either directly this constructor or I will call the second constructor. In this case, I have a second constructor where I have two variables. So I will pass two default values and the variable names, which will indirect call with the third constructor. So basically, third constructor is the has the responsibility to initialize all the variables, and this is called as constructor chaining. Now, if we look at the code also, reading wise, it's much simpler and much easier to understand compared to this, because here even though the number of the fields are very less, but writing wise you have to write a lot of lines of code with lot of duplication, right? In that is why using this aspect, this form of constructor one is a preferred option in the Java developers, between the Java developers. Similarly, super call and this call if you want to have. So let's say you are using constructor chaining, so you can call the this method from which it can call the second constructor. So we have a class called shape and class called rectangle which extend the shape. So in public rectangle aspect, it has only two variables instead of four, so it is passing to the second constructor, and through the second constructor it is calling super, which is going towards again to the constructor of the parent class, and after assigning those two values x and y, it is assigning the width and height here. Here we can use both super and this call, but in a separate constructor functions. Okay, this is method overloading and method overriding, which comes in the concept of polymorphism. So what I will do, since the time is already over, I will stop it here. I will share this PDF with you as well, so you can look at it, but I will cover this part because this is specifically for polymorphism, and we have seen some part of method overriding as of now doing the code. That's why I want to have discussion, but not much difference to no aspect of it, so we will discuss that later. Okay, so today we have looked at static and instance variable and how a static and instance variable, and then static and instance method. Then there's something called as POJO, that is plain old Java object. That means you can use an object and you can use a class to store your data in terms of a database, kind of database where you just need to read and write the data, right? And followed by certain inheritance problem with some overriding methods. Okay, so that will introduce us to concept of polymorphism when we use the concept of overriding in this aspect. Okay, so that's it from my side as of now, and if you have any other question, please let me know. So yeah, base class, so parent class can also be known as base class or super class, and derived class can also be known as child class or uh, uh, parent. Okay, base, derived, child, parent, super, subclass. Okay, so that is how the convention is will be like. Okay, if you have any question with respect to that, whether I'm doing fast in the coding or I should, please let me know what kind of format should I type it out, or should I show you the code directly, what kind of code I'm going to use. If that will be helpful to you, just let me know those thoughts so that I can prepare for the next session as well.
Sir, please type everything and make it ready, and it can take more time to explain.
Okay, fine. Then I will keep the code ready with me and I can explain it. But the problem will be I will be speaking.
You can share the code in the chat boxes. We will copy that one.
Okay, I can do that.
Or GitHub or something where you can. I've seen in Python class.
Sure. I can add in the GitHub as well. Okay, so what I will do next time, I will just write down code everything together, and I will try to cover more concept because I will not have to type it out. That will be fine, right? Okay, thank you for the session. So I will do that next time, and let's see how it will go. Yeah. So I'm ending the call for everyone. If you have any question, please let me know.
So one doubt.
Yeah, sure.
While calling a constructor, base is called first or derived is called first?
While calling a constructor, it depends on from which object you're calling. So if you're calling through a subclass objector, so obviously constructor of that subclass will call first, through which you have to, it will go towards the parent class constructor, but it will go through that object subclass object only if you're calling through subclass.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I have written 6-7 files today. So, but next time I will write the whole code. I will prepare with respect to it. I will not write it out again here, and I will share that to you during the start of the session only. I think that will, if that is work for you people, that will be fine from my side as well. Okay. In that case, that's the end of the session. If you have any other question, please let me know. Otherwise, I will end the call for everyone. Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, I'm ending the call for everyone in that case. Thank you for coming.